Suddenly the sun goes up and I feel my love.
Santa in a lane, winding up on the outside. Here comes Santa. Santa in a lane, swept to the front and kicked away in the TJ. Osborne Bulls Parada, champagne colours late, but Santa in a lane does it again. An emphatic victory in the TJ.
One of the most dominant wins you'll ever see in a TJ Smith Stakes. Santa Anna Lane makes up for his defeat here at this track in the Everest on that heavy track. He's blown them away. Daylight was second. Santa Anna Lane, Mark Zara and Anthony Friedman have cruised home, Duff.
Yeah, what a dominant performance. Geez, a big-time performer. Both horse and trainer. He sat back off. He come with his customary big finish, handled the track to a nicety there and absolutely toyed with him.
It's a super field for the Tab Everest of 2019, and it's Santa Anna Lane that heads it. If he wins it, he'll more than double the stakes that he's earned, and he was pretty special winning the TJ Smith. Following that, for Anthony Friedman and Team Friedman, went to Hong Kong, finished fourth up there behind Beat the Clock in a race that wasn't run to suit, and you get the feeling that it is, since then, it has been all roads to the Everest. Brad Gray, the Racing New South Wales form analyst, who joins us on the Punters Lounge Live each and every week, joins us again this morning. Good morning, Brad. Are you buzzing a bit? What's the setup for Randwick likely to be today?
Good morning to everybody out there watching or listening. And Sydney's turned it on too. We've got an absolutely cracker day outside. We've got a good deck, hopefully a nice even track. And as you said, this Everest field is unbelievable. We've been talking about it for months and months and months, and finally the day has arrived. So that talking stops and it's up to the horses now.
Yeah, and you would imagine that each and every one of them will be at fever pitch for the Group 1, 14 million Australian dollars in stakes. It's an eye-watering amount of money. Going through the field, Santa Anna Lane in New Zealand is 4.4, Acadia Queen at $4.80, Parata 7, and Yes, Yes, Yes is at 9. You've got two-time Everest winner Redzel at 10. Then you've got Sudlight and Elise at 12 and 13. How have you sorted through the form, Brad?
It hasn't been an easy task. I think no matter who you speak to out there, they've always got a differing opinion. Some people say that this is a forgotten runner, that's a forgotten runner. And as you said, Redzel, $10. He slipped under our guard the last 2 years. It's funny to say that, isn't he? A two-time winner, but he won at $8.50 in the first Everest, and the second one he won at $8.50, and here he is at $10. So I've left him out, but I'm loath to underestimate him a little bit. The replay we're going to look at is Arcadia Queen's win there in the Theo Mark Stakes, and I've got her on top. I just think she's a bit of a freak, this girl, and there is a bit of a theory out there that she's probably going to be better over further, and that's probably true. We saw her win out to 1,800 metres in the Kingston Town, but this has been a very specific plan from the camp. I know the Golden Eagle is certainly on that map too, but she's won 6 from 7. That win in the Theo, as we see here, she was pretty good in the middle stages. She didn't seem to come under too much pressure in terms of keeping in touch, and Deploy ran along this day, so that suggests to me she is going to be sharp enough. We've seen her in a trial since, and I think the beautiful thing about her barrier draw in 3 is she can just be settled midfield somewhere. James McDonald will curl her up, and she'll be coming home with a withering burst. Her advantage over Santa Anna Lane is she might be a pair or two closer. Certainly respect him. You show that package there of his TJ Smith Stakes winner. If he reproduces anything like that, it's going to take a pretty freaky performance to beat him. That said, I think the only one in the field that could match him if he did produce that, with the upside, is the X Factor there with Arcadia Queen. Outside of that, I've got plenty of respect for the 3-year-old. Yes, yes, yes. I was desperate for one of these young horses to get in the field. I was thinking it was going to be Bivouac like a Punters, but Yes, yes, yes is here. I like the setup for him. Third up, 1,400 metres back to 1,200 metres, and he gets the blinkers on. 53 kilos on his back, of course. We've seen a couple of 3-year-olds in the past run well in the race. Tulip ran 5th in the race in the first race, and in the second edition we saw Braff run 5th. And this bloke is a better class animal than both of those, so I think he can only run well. And every time we saw these 3-year-olds step out, they ran time comparative to the older horses. So really interesting to see how he measures up. And the one we can throw in a bit of odds, if you're playing a first forward with Trifecta, I don't know if she can win, but in her time is an outstanding fresh horse. You probably don't need me to tell you that. She's won 5 from 8 first up. And looking at her prices first up in the past, and you've got form around the likes of Santa Anna Lane. She's won a Galaxy first up. She won a Lightning down the straight there first up last time in beating Osborne Bulls and Sunlight. So the fact So she's nearly 20 to 1. I think she slipped under the radar a little bit, out of sight, out of mind. As I say, I don't know if she can win the race. If you're playing first forwards, I think she's one that might slip under the radar and add a little bit of spice to your exotic.
In fairness, the two runnings of the Everest that we've seen, Redzel and Kieran McAvoy, have rather dominated things in front, and there really wasn't a heck of a lot happening. How much different do you think this year's renewal will be with the likes of Nature Strip in there and also 10 Sovereigns?
Yeah, they're certainly going to run along, aren't they? Nature Strip's drawn wide. I think that's a lovely draw for him. And Tim Clark's come out and said pretty much what we all knew looking at this map. He's not going to fire him out because that way he tends to really fire up in front and he'll get too keen. So it's going to be a gradually building tempo. He'll try and back off in the middle stages, I imagine, and then slip them on the turn. And I think there'll be a few punters that they're just holding their breath at the top of the straight, which they might think Nature Strip's got this, but it's going to be the last 100 metres. Of course, at Randwick, it's a pretty testing 1,200 metres that they'll start gobbling him up. 10 Sovereigns is a tricky one to map. He's generally a go-forward horse. Is he going to be able to match it with the early total of these Aussie sprinters in the early stages? Probably not. But he's, again, going to be one who's going to be building into the race. We know he's going to be really strong on the back of his July Cup win over there at Newmarket. He was really strong through the line, and I think that race is more like a 1,400-metre track. Apparently, it's a very steep incline there, so he's going to be strong at the end of the race. Then you've got your likes of Sunlight punching through. As you say, Redzel is going to be somewhere thereabouts. So the speed is going to be a pretty genuine clip.
Good to get those thoughts from Brad Gray about the Tab Everest. Let's go back a race and talk about Brutal, who's an odds-on favourite for the Sydney Stakes. $2.10 early tote, but $1.85 on option 1022, a horse that really reminded us how good he was when he won Fresh Up, having won the Doncaster in the autumn. He went out paying $5 and he got there. It was a very good effort. He looks more or less thrown in today, doesn't he?
Yeah, we got something out of him there first up, but I'm against him here second up. The query for me is that he's staying at 1,200 metres when the Golden Eagle has always been his grand final, so there's half a risk that he's going to be just a touch flat. Second up, you see him here winning that race first up, and you're right, he was outstanding. He stayed outside of the leader, and as soon as you saw him walk into the yard that day, you thought he's ready to run a mighty race because he just presented in such outstanding order. As a 4-year-old now, we know the O'Reillys generally come on 4 and 5, and he does look in for a really good campaign. But as I say, at $1.80 or $1.90, I think he's skinny enough. Where he gets to, I think he's probably not going to be able to sit outside the leader here. He'll just tuck in behind. No doubt he's hard to beat, and he certainly is the class runner in the field. But if you're looking for a bet in the race, I'd have something each way on Easy Eddie to 5. He resumed there at Warwick Farm first up, and you can say, how do you come out of a defeat in a midweek race and then win the Sydney Stakes? But he's always a horse that bounces off that first up run. He's never won first up. His second up record is outstanding, and he ran third in a Galaxy not that long ago behind Nature Strip and Pia Rada. So it suggests that he's a proper Group 1 horse, and if you're a little bit forgiving and you trust his pattern, I think he's one that's escaped the net a little bit, and he's around $19 or $20.
Okay, talking about the Kosciuszko now, and Victorum is the favourite for that. How have you assessed this race, Brad?
Yeah, it's a deep field, isn't it? They come from everywhere. Terrific concept, and he's not hard to find, but Victorum up the top there is the class animal. He's really well weighted with 59. He's 107 rater over here. You've got Noble Boy as 100 rater, and they meet on level pegging. So on that, he certainly is thrown in. He is first up, so you've certainly got to consider whether he's going to be fit enough. That said, this has been a target race for a long time now. He didn't get the job done in this race last year where he was expected to. However, that was a very heavy track. Cast your mind back there 12 months. We saw him in a couple of trials. We know he loves a good deck. And the nice thing about these trials is he jumped really cleanly. He put himself somewhere thereabouts. He has had a little bit of history there of missing the kick. I don't think that'll be the case today. And although there's not a stack of speed here, which is some query for people asking about the short odds in terms of taking off, he can settle a little bit closer than what we used to. Just let him get into his rhythm somewhere and rip home. When we saw him first up last prep, he was in listed grade, and he ran home with Viridine. He ran second, and he ran the fastest last 600 metres of the day. So as I say, he's a genuine group horse, this horse. So I think he's thrown into a race like this, and I think we're betting with him with a little bit of confidence. I've got him there as the anchor of the day and the best for the day at Randwick. That's race 5, number 1 in the Kosciuszko.
Excellent. So that's the best there for Brad. Can you summarise your other bets on the day outside of Victorum?
Yeah, I think Zardoro in the highway. I'm generally a little bit gun-shy in the highway handicaps, because I find them very tricky with these country horses coming from everywhere. But double-figure odds for a horse that's been very consistent in this grade in the past, a little bit of a freshen, and there's so much speed in this race. I think he'll just be tucking behind them and get the last shot. I think he's crazy odds. He should certainly be in the single figures, in my opinion. And then the lucky last, Articus. His run there was excellent last start in the Group 3 Cameron. He split Rock and Natoya. They both ran really well in the Epsom subsequently, and then Natoya we saw last week in the Yank Stakes, so there's certainly nothing wrong with the form. And although he's an old bloke, I think he's 8 now, he's probably never raced better. So I think he'll punch up, sit outside the lead in a race that doesn't look to be a great deal of speed, and give us one hell of a sight there from up in front. So we'll make him one of the bets there in the last at Randwick.